Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So these are all the Riga devotees here today. So today we are going to discuss Nectar of Instruction, Upadeśāmṛta and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yesterday we had discussed the Bhagavad Gita. So today we will take on a very, very interesting story of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that story is very significant because it tells us how we have to be careful in Vaishnava behavior. We will discuss the story of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramachandra Puri. So first we will discuss the Upadeśāmṛta. I'm not going to give a background to this today because yesterday I spent enough time giving the audience a background to this great scripture known as Sri Upadeśāmṛta. So today we are going to discuss text 7. You can repeat the Sanskrit after me. Syat
Syat
Krishna
Krishna
Nama
Nama
Charitadi
Charitadi Sitapi
Avidya
Pitopatapta
Rasanasya
Na
Rochika New Gintpadara Anudinam Hello Saiva Justa Swadvi Nama Bhavati Gata Mula Hantri. The Upadeśāmṛta verse for today is an easy verse to chant. So that verse we'll write on the board so all of you can chant with us, okay? So the word meaning and the translation. Sat Krishna Nama Charitadi Satapi Vidya Pitopatapta Rasana Rochika Nu Kint Vadarad Anudinam Khalu Saiva Josta Swadvi Kramad Bhavati Tad Gada Mula Hantri. So this is a very, very important verse of this great book, Sri Upadeśāmṛta, which has been compiled by Rupa Goswami, and we shall discuss the meaning of this verse today. It is being described in this verse that everything related to Krishna is Sharani Troshnik. Just like children are very fond of sweets, so Krishna, his name, fame, entourage, teachings, it is all sweet like the sugar. However, in the disease condition, we cannot appreciate the sweetness of Krishna. Just like when you are diseased, you cannot taste the sweetness of sugar cane. Similarly, Rupa Goswami is saying, due to the influence of avidya, we cannot appreciate the sweetness of Krishna's name and his pastimes. But Rupa Goswami is telling us that if we sincerely chant the holy names, then we will get cured of the disease of avidya and we will be able to taste the sweetness of the holy name. So, the holy name and the pastimes of the Lord are completely sweet. But unfortunately, due to avidya, we cannot appreciate the Lord's transcendental qualities. Due to the presence of avidya, the living entity thinks that sense enjoyment is the enjoyable thing. In English there is a saying, one man's food is another man's poison. So, what is food for the devotee is poison for the non-devotee. And what is food for the non-devotee is poison for the devotee. Just like the Bhagavad Gita, in the 2nd chapter the Bhagavad Gita states, what is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the introspective sage. And the time of awakening for the introspective sage is night for all beings. When it is time for the transcendentalist to wake up early in the morning and start their spiritual activities, the materialists are still sleeping. And late in the night, the materialists are all still awake, but devotees are taking rest. So, the living entity is born into illusion and is brought up in illusion. Illusion means, as we were explaining yesterday, identifying with the body. And as long as you identify with the body, you can never go right. Identification of the body means identification with the principles of sense enjoyment. And we have discussed yesterday from the verses of the issue from the Upadeśāmṛta, the sense enjoyment has no place in spiritual life. Kāmasa nendriya priti labo jīveta yavada jīvasya tattva jigyāsa. The Vedic scriptures tell us how human life should be used for self-realization and not for sense enjoyment. Dhruva Maharaja stated the sense enjoyment is also available in the hellish planets. So to pursue sense enjoyment after the achievement of this rare human life is shrama eva hi kevalam, simply a waste of time. In the Vedic scriptures, we have innumerable examples of how, through the medium of sense enjoyment, the animals meet their destruction. Human life should be used for self-realization. Emada dullava manava deho paya ki keho pavana keho. Thakur Bhakti Vinod has said, O conditioned soul, if you do not use this life correctly, then at the moment of death, you will regret it. The husband and wife were very, very attached to each other. They were busy glorifying each other, and slowly they had 2 children. One day the husband and wife had gone in the forest to bring some fruit for the children. And the children were little grown up. So they came out of the nest and started walking near their house. And there was a cruel hunter passing by. The hunter saw these innocent children walking in front of the nest, and he threw his net and he had them trapped. And when the father and mother came back from hunting from the forest, they saw that their so-called loved children were sitting right in front of them in the hunter's net, but there's nothing they could have done. So the mother was saying, the mother was very attached to her children. The mother was saying, here are my children for whom I lived. They're standing right in front of me, but I can't touch them. And the children were looking at the mother. The children were in the hunter's net, and they were looking at the mother and saying, Mommy, take us. And the mother was saying, how can I? And the mother just lamenting, she also fell in the hunter's net. The father was there. He saw in front of his eyes his beloved wife that he was praising all day with romantic songs was right in front of his eyes, but he could do nothing to save her. He also saw in front of his eyes his children. Right in front of his eyes they were there, about to be killed. But there's nothing he could do. And he was just lamenting, how I have wasted this valuable life just praising my wife and my children. Now they are standing in front of me in the clutches of, in death's hands, and there's nothing I can do. And just thinking like this, the father also fell in the hunter's net. So the Sriman Bhagavatam has narrated this story to point out the position of the foolish materialist who spends all his time flattering his wife and children, and how the wife and children, who are fallible soldiers, are standing in front of his eyes, but he cannot do anything to protect them. We have 5 knowledge acquiring senses: the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and touch, genitals. Then we have objects of the senses. What is the object of the eyes? Vision. What is the object of the ears? Sound. What is the object of the tongue? Taste. And the object of the nose? Smell. And of the genitals? Touch. So you have knowledge acquiring senses, then you have the objects of the senses. So in the Vedas we have example of how these knowledge acquiring senses, if they are misused, how they become the cause of one's destruction. Just like I was explaining to you, eyes is one of the knowledge acquiring senses. Why is it one of the knowledge acquiring senses? Because through the eyes we can see and discriminate and find out what things look like. So the Vedas give the example of an animal who is called the moth. The moth is very attracted to light. I do not know if you have the moth in your country, but in tropical countries it is very common. Maybe in the Asia segment of Soviet Union it may be there. Have you ever heard of this animal called the moth? Okay, so the moth has eyes and it is always meditating, how can I satisfy my eyes? So the moth is very attracted to shining light. So in the night, when you put the electricity switch on, the moth sees the shining light and it says, this is heaven. This is where I should be. And it goes and sits on the shining light. And when the moth goes and sits on the shining light, what happens? The heat of that light is so warm and the moth's body is so small that the moth gets roasted to death. Like if any of you have been to India, you may have noticed even in Vrindavan when you get up in the morning, so many moths are found dead. They all died due to the heat of the light. Similarly, the human animal, once he uses eyes to see something naked, to see something vulgar, obscene, it is very nice that in your country they don't have these vulgar nightclubs in every street corner like they have in the Western countries. But I've been told that now they're planning on starting it. Then you have the nose. The bee is very fond of smelling something palatable. It goes from one flower to another, hoping to find something palatable. Ultimately, it finds a lotus flower. And when it finds the lotus flower, it thinks, this is samadhi, this is real bliss. And it goes and relaxes in that, just like people go to the beach to relax, get tanned. So the bee goes and sits down on the lotus flower, relaxes completely, forgetting everything. But it doesn't realize that in the evening, by the law of nature, the lotus flower is going to close and the bee is going to get trapped, suffocated to death. Then you have the deer. The deer has all the senses, but one sense that is trying to satisfy the most, which is the ear. So when the hunter is trying to catch a deer, he knows it is very, very difficult, because at the speed the deer moves, the bullet can't catch him. So what does the hunter do? He plays a particular melody, which is the weakness of the deer. So when the deer hears that melody, it says, oh, where is that melody coming from? And while it is searching out the source of the melody, it stops running, and in the meantime the hunter shoots him. Then you have the elephant, who normally is a very difficult animal to capture. But the hunter trains up the he-elephant, he trains up the she-elephant. How? The hunter trains up the she-elephant, so she will drag the male elephant for a relationship. And while the male elephant is following the she-elephant, there's a ditch that is dug up, which is covered with grass, and the male elephant ends up falling in the ditch. Then the cruel hunter comes and does the rest. Then you have the fish, who has a weakness, that is the tongue. Where on a nice day, even in your country, I have seen you have hundreds of people fishing. I was in Leningrad when the weather was very nice, and I saw hundreds of people, every inch they were used up, people were fishing. Prabhupada, when he saw people fishing, he would say, one day the person who is fishing is going to become the fish. Now how does the fish meet its death? The fish also has a weakness, that's the tongue. So when the fish sees the fisherman's bait under the water, it says, oh, here is some more food for me. And it goes to catch that food, and in the end, the fish gets stuck in the bait of the hunter, and he meets its death. So we have given you these examples to show how, due to avidya, the living entity thinks that he is going to identify, he is the body, and how, if he thinks he is the body, he is going to meet his death like these animals. So Prabhupada is saying in the purport that due to ignorance one has joined us, and in joined us, Doesn't matter how sweet you make, how sweet a product you may get, you cannot taste the sweetness of the product you eat. So, just like when you fall sick, when you are sick, you lose your taste buds. So when your taste buds are killed, are dead due to your temperature, nobody brings you food and tells you, now please tell me which food is more delicious. So, Prabhupada says in the purport, the one who puts his faith in Durashraya becomes a candidate of hoping against hope. Hoping against hope that he can find happiness. The materialist is hoping against hope that he will find happiness. The world of Maya is called Durashraya. And in this world of Maya called Durashraya, there is no scope for happiness at all. Jiveya Swarupaya Krishna Nityadas, the constitutional possession of every living entity, is to engage in service to the Supreme Lord. So, everything related to Krishna is sweet. In the Sriman Bhagavatam we say that Parikshit Maharaj was hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord from 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 Goswami. And Parikshit Maharaj was fasting, you know that? He was completely fasting. Parikshit Maharaj was getting so much nectar in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord that he told 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 Goswami, please, go on, more. Just like sometimes they go to these big rock concerts of Michael Jackson or Beatles and all that. And when people, their fans, what do they say? Bolshoi, more. So similarly, Parikshit Maharaj was getting so much nectar from hearing that even though he was fasting, he told 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 Goswami, more. Because the devotee can never get tired of hearing the glories of the Lord. But we get tired due to our impurity. So Rupa Goswami is saying, take this medicine, then we will become healthy. And if we don't take the medicine, then there's no question of becoming healthy. So in the Sriman Bhagavatam it is said, Prayenal Payusha Sabhya Kala Vasmin Yuge Janaha Manda Samanda Mataya Mandya Bhaga Upadataha. That in Kali Yuga, the people are misled, unfortunate, lazy, misguided. I heard that some people feel that all the lazy people are just in this country. I can tell you there are lazy people in every corner of the planet. This is what the Bhagavatam says. Any part of the world, when the boss is away, nobody works. Just like when the cat is away, the mice all begin to play. So people are lazy, misguided, and they have no interest in spiritual life. So the real disease is in the heart. Does not matter how healthy you may look externally, but we are all suffering from a disease called heart disease. But to get this heart disease cured, you don't have to go to a cardiologist. You have to go to a spiritual doctor. So, if we take to the chanting of the holy name, then the heart will gradually get purified. So the misconception about bodily identification can be removed only with the aid of devotional service. And avidya, the misidentification of the body, helps us to establish ahankar. Ahankar means false ego. Ahankar makes you believe, I am the best man, I am the best speaker, the best singer, the most handsome, the most beautiful. I. Therefore, this heart disease of avidya must be cured. So, by chanting, this avidya can be destroyed. The blazing fire of material existence is burning everyone to the crisp. There are different stages in chanting the holy name of the Lord. The offensive stage, the stage of lessening offenses, and the purified stage. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, we must cure the avidya. Therefore he said in his Sikshastaka, Chetu Darpan Marjanam Bhavaman Dwarmi Nirvapanam Shreya, that by chanting, the heart, which is full of dust and which was white at one time, will become cleansed. So, Chetu Darpan, by chanting, the heart can become cleansed. And what is the proof that your heart is getting cleansed? Ahankar is going away, material desires are going away. Just like when you're sick. When you're sick, what is the symptom? Temperature, head is warm, body is warm, no appetite, isn't it? And then when you are recovering from the disease, what is the symptom? Temperature is down, head is not warm, body is not paining, and you have appetite once again. So, this heart disease must be corrected or destroyed at once. Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die by a Brahmin boy. The Brahmin boy's name was Shringi. If Parikshit Maharaj wanted, he could easily have counteracted the curse. After all, he was saved when he was in his mother's womb also. So what did Parikshit Maharaj do? He invited all the great sages and asked them a very simple question. What should one do who is about to die? This meeting was called on the bank of the Ganges. The bank of the Ganges was very auspicious for spiritual development. 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 Goswami then recited the Sriman Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam was actually recited 3 times. The first time, Vyasadeva recited it to 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 Goswami. Then 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚 Goswami recited it to Parikshit Maharaj on the bank of the Ganges with all the sages present. Then another great devotee called Sonaka Rishi, he was along with the sages performing a big yajna in Namashranya forest in Lucknow. Why? Because the great sages were very concerned as to what was going to happen to the people in Kali Yuga. So, in order to save the people from the effects of Maya, they were performing this yajna for people to benefit. So, the sages, they invited Sonaka Rishi. They said, you are a very learned man. Please tell us, what can we do in Kali Yuga to save people? Sonaka Rishi then recited the Sriman Bhagavatam which he had heard from 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚 Goswami. Because when 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚 Goswami was speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, in the audience there were other great sages also. And one of the sages who was present was Sonaka Rishi. So then Sonaka Rishi repeated the exact Bhagavatam the way he had heard it from 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚 Goswami. So we have given this background to point out that through the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can understand our constitutional position and our duty. So, Parikshit Maharaj in the Srimad Bhagavatam heard from 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚 Goswami that one who is about to die, he must hear the transcendental active glories of the Lord. You may think, oh, I'm a young man, I'm only 25, I won't die till I'm at least 65, 70. So I have enough time for taking to spiritual life. Therefore the Vedas say, Padam Padam Yatpi Padamna Tesham. There is danger at every step. Therefore one should always be alert. So Parikshit Maharaj was convinced by 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚, you must hear about Kṛṣṇa. So in this verse, hearing is being emphasized. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. Hearing. We must train the ears so that they hear the right thing and not the wrong thing. Therefore, hear about the holy name. Hear about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Hear about the Lord's teachings. Hear about the Lord's desires. And see the beautiful form of the Lord. The stage of bhajana kriya is realized when one is initiated into the chanting of the holy name. And in that stage, if he sincerely executes the rules and regulations, then he will be able to make spiritual advancement. So, by chanting and avoiding the offenses, one is able to gain appreciation of Kṛṣṇa. Maya is there everywhere, but Maya will not disturb a devotee who is in the bhava stage. In other words, Kṛṣṇa Surya Sama Maya Hayadikara. Yaha Kṛṣṇa Tayini Mayadikara. Where there is Kṛṣṇa, there is no room for Maya. Just like where there is sunshine, there is no room for darkness. So, Rupa Goswami is saying, somehow or the other we must get attached to Kṛṣṇa. Then we can be protected. If the ears are not used to hear about the glories of the Lord, the ears have been described to be like the holes in the body of a snake. And the tongue is not used to glorify the Lord. It is compared to the croaking of a frog. The frog, by its croaking, just invites death. So, Rupa Goswami is very clearly telling us that if we chant the holy name, then the avidya will be destroyed. We must accept the glories of the holy name with full faith. we should never underestimate the value of the holy name. Therefore, one of the 10 offenses is what? To give some mundane interpretation to the chanting of the holy name. So the point is that we must get attached to Krishna, just like the Ganges water is always purifying. Just like the metal gets attracted to the magnet, we must be attracted in the human form of life to Krishna. But to get attracted to Krishna, you have to make the effort. You can't expect that without effort you'll get attached. Just by chanting the mantra, attachment, 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 you're not going to get attached. If you do what Krishna wants you to do, then that love will develop. Just like in the daytime, when the light comes, you can see me, I can see you. In other words, we can see everything in the right perspective. So, under the sun of Krishna, we can see things in the right perspective. And if we are not associated with the holy name, then we cannot understand our real position. So we must use this human life correctly. When a man is sick, he can't appreciate prasad, isn't it? Even when you're sick, you can't appreciate prasad. But when you get healthy, you can appreciate prasad again. So we cannot appreciate the holy name just due to our material desires. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, my dear Lord, you're so merciful that you have invested all the transcendental energies in your holy name. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. To take the view, oh, now I'm initiated devotee, I'm chanting 16 rounds, I have spontaneous attraction for Krishna. It is just an illusion. We have no attraction for the Lord, but if we follow the Lord's direction, then that attachment can develop. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my dear Lord, you're so merciful, you have invested all the transcendental energies in your holy name. Yesterday I was showing you how even in the Bible, in all the main scriptures of the world, this process is recommended, chanting the holy names of the Lord. So, the pastimes of Krishna are very interesting. It's like the purified sun. Whether you have stool and urine on the floor, the earth can purify everything. Similarly, the Lord does not get affected by the contamination of the material world. He remains pure in all respects. Just like the metal, as soon as it is near the magnet, doesn't go automatically. So Prabhupada used to say that is how we should have our attraction for Krishna. As soon as you see the form of Krishna, say, here is my beloved Krishna. As soon as you get a chance to chant his holy names, do it very enthusiastically. And as soon as you get a chance to chant his names, do it without interruption. And if you take advantage of every situation to cultivate Krishna consciousness, then Krishna who's in the heart will make it possible. Everything related to Krishna is sweet. Has any devotee ever found Krishna's pastimes to be boring? Sometimes devotees may fall asleep because they are tired, but nobody finds it boring because Krishna's activities are so transcendental. Who doesn't like reading the superhuman activities of a great man? In our country, don't the children read those Superman comics? Anyway, the Karmi children do read the Superman comics all over the world. Why? Because they like seeing some heroic work done by somebody. So whose activities can be more wonderful and transcendental than Krishna's? When he opens his mouth, his mother sees the whole universe. When you and I open our mouth, when we go to the doctor sees it for 1 second and then says, close it now. In fact, our mouth inside is so dirty, the spoon that they put inside it, throw it away then. And Krishna, he lifted a huge hill, Govardhan hill. Krishna spoke wonderful philosophy even when he was a young child. So Krishna has showed his universal form. And one day, you're going to have a big temple in your town of Riga also. And when you have your big temple, you're going to have Radha Krishna Murtis. And every day Radha Krishna is going to wear a new dress. So meditate on the dress that the deities are wearing every day. God is also a person. Don't think that Bhoga is impersonal. Those who think that God is not a person have no understanding of Bhoga. God is a person, but He is transcendental. Annane yassa sakalanda ritimante. Brahmaji says, with any one part of his body, he can do the functions of any other part. Just like when you offer prasad to the Lord, you again take the prasadam plate out of the altar and the whole plate is still there. So the impersonalists will say, you say your God has eaten your prasad, Where did he eat? The whole plate is there exactly like before. But Krishna has eaten through the ears and through the eyes. How? The devotee chants certain mantras when he is offering prasad. So the mantras Krishna heard through the ears and through his eyes, he has already tasted the prasad. Krishna says, let there be creation. And the creation takes place. Suppose you say, let there be a temple overnight. The temple will not take place. But if you... So the point is, Krishna with any one part of his body, he can do the function of any other part. 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 𝐿 bhuta. The Lord is situated in Goloka Vrindavan. Nevertheless, he is manifested everywhere. Just like the sun disk. The sun disk is in the sun planet. What should they ask each other? Questions about Krishna's pastimes. Just like when King Dashrath, the father of Lord Ramachandra, was ruling on the planet. Anybody who would walk into the palace, he would say, how is the progress on the journey back to Godhead? In the mature world, when we meet each other, we say, how are you? They'll say, very well, thank you. And how are you? Kṛṣṇa. So, the devotees, when they meet each other, they should just be asking like King Dashrath used to ask, what is the progress on the journey back to Godhead? So the mind is attracted to sense enjoyment at the moment. Just like the child. The child is attracted to sucking the thumb. Isn't it? So in the beginning when the mother tells the child, don't suck your thumb, the child will cry in protest. So similarly when the mind is wandering into areas of sense enjoyment and you bring it back to Krishna, the mind will protest. Why Krishna? It is so boring. But we have to make the effort. Devotees sometimes say, it is so difficult to control the mind. Arjuna found it so difficult, so how can we control the Oma? In English there is a saying, try and try again, you will succeed at last. So we have to try to control the Oma, snova, again and again. Just like when the child is going across the street, what does the mother do? Runs behind the child and brings the child back. Similarly, when the mind wanders into where? Sex desire and material comforts. These are the two tendencies of the mind. We should pull the mind out of those areas and think about Krishna's instructions, pastimes and so on. This you can only do when you understand the real position of Maya and the real position of Krishna. Right now we don't understand the real position of either Maya or Krishna. What is false we accept as real. What is real we accept as false. What is temporary we accept as permanent. What is permanent we accept as temporary. What is Sat is being accepted as Sat. What is Sat is being accepted as Asat, and Asat is being accepted as Sat. True is being accepted as false, falsehood is being accepted as true. Maya, which is our false identity, we think it is our real identity. We are so much in love with Maya that even in old age, the desire to surrender to Lord does not come. Even in old age, the senses are hungry for sense enjoyment. They are saying, please, please, please give me sense enjoyment. Prabhupada used to give one story. The story was of a Muslim king called Akbar. There was a Muslim king and he was a pious king. He asked his prime minister, he said, why in old age at least people don't give up all sorts of sense enjoyment and just concentrate on worshipping God? The second prime minister said, because the desire for sense enjoyment does not go away even in old age. The prime king said, I don't believe it. So the prime minister said, please come with me to a hospital. I will take you to a dying man and we'll take with us a young girl. So the prime minister took the king and a young girl to an old man in the hospital. Prime minister told the king, you just watch where the eyes of the old man will be when we are talking to him. And the eyes of the old man who was sick in the hospital was at the beautiful young girl who was with the king. So then the king was convinced that even in old age the man is thinking only of sense enjoyment. So that is the nature of sense enjoyment. It will never tell you, now Alexander, I had enough, now you concentrate on the holy name. it will always say, Alexander, you didn't give me anything. It's just like the materialist wife who always tells her husband, what have you ever done for me? So the senses are always saying, what have you ever done for me? Nothing at all. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says, I have tried to satisfy my senses in time and memorial, but I'm always being cheated by them. So, once you understand the real position of Krishna, and once you understand the real position of Maya, then you can give up sense enjoyment. What is the real position of Maya? It is just false. There is no substance in it. It looks real, but if you probe deeply, it is not real. Even if it gives you happiness, it will give you happiness only for a short term. So therefore, the devotee, understanding the difference between Krishna and Maya, understanding the real position of Krishna and the false position of Maya, takes to Krishna consciousness, and as he takes to Krishna consciousness and follows the rules and regulations, the impurities from the heart begin to melt away, and as they melt away, he can appreciate Krishna more and more. Maya means forgetfulness of Krishna. As Krishna consciousness means remembering Krishna. So Krishna and Maya are standing side by side. Just like if you're standing in the shadow, you can't get the effect of light. And if you are standing in light, you can't get the effect of shadow. So this verse by Rupa Goswami is very clearly telling us that Krishna's name, form, beauty, instructions are all enjoyable, but due to ignorance we cannot appreciate. But if we take to the chanting of the holy name, then we will be able to appreciate the sweetness of the holy name and Krishna's beauty. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So in the programs that I normally do, at 3:30, I usually stop for 1 hour. So today also we will stop for about 40 minutes and then we'll start again. I'm sorry I started late today, but we will start again in 1 hour or 45 minutes. And I can take your questions after the break. Hare Krishna.
Gopal Krishna Maharaj ki Jai. We was asking about the importance of quality of chanting. Hare Krishna.
So the quality of chanting is very important, because if we do not chant properly, then the effect of the chanting will be limited. Chanting is important and we should be attentive in chanting. Just like you just had prasad. So suppose the temple gives you prasad, but it is burnt prasad, then will you enjoy it? So just like you do not like to eat burnt prasad, you should not want to do inattentive chanting. So it is very important that we chant our rounds attentively and also avoid the 10 offenses. If we just chant and you're not careful to avoid the offenses, then the effect of the chanting will be limited. Sometimes devotees have a tendency to do their 16 rounds, but they do it so fast that they can't concentrate on it properly. I'll tell you a story about fast chanting later on.
In Angat, you told about Shukracharya that he was guru on birth, not on
qualification.
Yeah, and is it possible that
everyone can come in and sit down. There is enough room for everyone.
And it is also possible that maybe Brahman on the birth. But is it possible that maybe Brahman on the initiation but not on the qualities?
Yes, Ochin Kharal Shubhapros. Yes, why not? People may take Brahman initiation and they are not acting like Brahmins. So we have to act like Brahmins. If you don't act like Brahman and you say I'm Brahmin, then people will think you're a cheater. Just like in India. In India, so many people have taken so-called Brahmin initiation, but they have no spiritual standard. So people don't respect them. Sometimes people want to know, how did the Vedic culture break down in India? The Vedic culture broke in India because the so-called Brahmins, Kshatriyas, etc., they were just saying, I'm born in the Brahmin family, give me respect. But they were acting like Sudras.
One devotee told him that for all good karma, the man will enjoy, and for all bad karma he will suffer. And that means that good karma cannot destroy the bad karma and opposite. Is it true or not?
Your next body is decided by the difference between good karma and bad karma. Suppose your good karma is 10 points and your bad karma is 15 points, so you're -5. And your next body will be based on -5. And if your good karma is suppose +10 and your bad karma is -5, so your next body will be on +5. I have one devotee in Montreal, Canada. He looks like him, talks like him, acts like him. They must be twin brothers in their last life. When I go there this time, I'll tell him.
He hopes that this disciple is more happy than him.
Why are you not happy? You should also be happy. Everybody in Krishna consciousness must be happy. Prabhupada said this movement has been started to make people happy. So anybody who is not happy should come to me. I'll tell them how to be happy.
There is two terms, self-realization and realization of God. What is the difference between the two?
They are more or less the same. Self-realization means you realize, I am the eternal servant of God and God is supreme. And God realization means you say God is supreme, so I must serve Him. Okay?
In our hearts there is a Paramatma who is who knows everything. And which knowledge do we need in this case?
Paramatma knows everything. Paramatma is seeing everything that you do. He's just keeping a record of what you do. What do you mean He knows everything what you do? Paramatma is simply the policeman. Like in your country you have these policemen, they sit on the top and they watch everything. So Paramatma is just watching everything and based upon your karma and desire.
What means the eternal relationship with the spiritual master, and when do they begin? After initiation or in previous lifetimes?
At least in this time it begins after initiation. Eternal relationship means the spiritual master agrees to take you back to Godhead, even if he has to take his birth again, provided you agree to keep following his instructions.
When we chant in Hare Krishna mantra, on what should we concentrate? On the sound of mantra, or on his pastimes, or can we ask something from him?
Concentrate in the initial stages just on the sound.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,